Okay, so I play band and there's this girl that sits next to me and she's always seemed kind of weird, but I never wanted to just assume, you know? So about 2 weeks into our band camp, I noticed that she was always talking to this one guy in the front. Mind you, this guy already goes to high school and he's about to be a junior, and this girl is barely in 8th grade. So anyways, I would always see them talking and laughing until this one day she wasn't there. And she's one of those pick me girls, like if she notices the guy talking to someone she doesn't like, she will make herself known, just so he'll notice her instead of the other girl. So because I didn't see her, I thought that she wasn't in school today. So I was going to the band room and then I see the guy that she's always talking to waiting outside the room for her. So I told him, "Hi, I don't think she's coming here today. I don't think she's here." And he was just like, "That's fine. I actually wanted to talk to you." And I was like, "Me?" And he was like, "Yeah, I want to talk to you." And I just told him, "Well, I can't. I have practice, maybe afterwards." And all he said was okay, so I ended up walking into the band room. When I walked into the band room, I saw the pick-me girl sitting in my spot. So obviously I told her to move. She then responded with, "No, it's mine now since you want to talk to my man." And I was like, "I'm not even talking to him. I don't even know him." And she just responded with, "Yeah, right, because he was asking for you yesterday." And obviously I was really confused because I don't know him like that. I know of him, but I'm not his friend. So after I told her that I wasn't coming on to him, she was like, "Yeah, well, I believe him and not you." And at this point, I was already over the situation, so I was like, "You know what? Okay, whatever. I don't care." I began to walk away, but then she goes, "You know what? I'm gonna go tell the principal that you're talking to a junior and you're a freshman." And one thing to note is that at my school, if you're dating a person that's 4 years older than you, not only will you get into trouble, but so will the other person because it's obviously against the law. And from what I heard, this guy wasn't 16, he was actually 17 turning 18, and it was because he got held back a year. So that's a 4-year difference between me and him, so we would get into trouble. I told her not to because that's not what was going on, but she ended up telling the principal anyways. So now he's switching to another school and I'm in ISS for 2 weeks, all because the pick-me girl thought there was something going on between us when there wasn't. Story time! Okay, so I have to admit 2020 has been the worst year of my life. Not only did I have to deal with a loss, but I also had to deal with a huge family conflict that still goes on till this day. So on March 2020, I received a message from my step-aunt asking me when I was coming home from school. I responded to her by saying I'll be home around 4:30 p.m. After that, she just left me on red. I didn't think much of it since it was really common for her to do that to all of us. Later that day, I arrived to my bus stop and I immediately noticed that my mom was already waiting for me there, which was strange because she usually takes a really long time to pick me up, or she just often tells me to walk home. I obviously thought I was in trouble, and right there and then, I started rethinking all of my life choices. During the whole ride back home, we were dead silent, and I swear to God, I was so nervous, especially because my mom had this really mean look on her face. We arrived home, and as soon as I entered, I saw my uncle, which is my dad's brother, crying his eyes out in the living room, my grandma praying in the dining room, and my grandpa reading the Bible in the guest room. My dad, you may ask, was outside avoiding the tension. It was chaotic in there. I went to my room to get changed out of my uniform, and as soon as I was about to close my closet door, I hear yelling and screaming coming from the kitchen. I made sure my sister stayed in her room, and then after that, I left running to check out what was going on. When I ran into the kitchen, I saw my mom all up in my uncle's face, telling him to get out of our house. So my mom was trying to push my uncle out of the house. Side note, my uncle is obese while my mom is really short and thin, so it was kind of hard for her to move him, but she still managed to do it because she was so angry. So that whole afternoon, my mom and my uncle were having arguments and they were saying things like, "Why would you lie to her?" or "Leave your shit out of my house." And I have to admit, it was kind of annoying. So after they finished arguing, my mom pulled me out of the house and you could tell that she was really angry, and she told me that we were going to Walmart. During the car ride, I asked my mom what was going on. What she said shocked me and broke my heart into pieces. Turns out my uncle had an affair with another woman in Mexico, and she was already 6 months pregnant, which was obviously meaning he was cheating on his soon-to-be wife, the aunt who had messaged me earlier. What pissed me off the most was the fact that everyone in Mexico knew about it, and I mean everyone. My cousins, my aunts, my uncles, everyone. And to make matters worse, they let her live with them knowing that he has a soon-to-be wife here in the US. And apparently my mom had known since December of 2019 because his sister, my aunt, told my mom in discreet before they left back to Mexico. So when my uncle and my step-aunt showed up to our house unnoticed, my mom got really angry. The reason she got mad is because she thought that it was disrespectful and disgusting for him to be doing this and staying with her, perfectly knowing that he has a baby mama in Mexico, without my step-aunt knowing about it. And earlier in the day, when my step-aunt texted me and left me on red, was the exact moment my mom had told her the truth and she left crying. And my step-aunt has always been so good to me, so it broke my heart knowing that she had to go through this just because of my cheating uncle. So to this day, I never forgave my uncle for what he did to her, and I haven't seen my step-aunt since that day. I've also lost all trust in my family in Mexico, especially after they knew what was going on, but they still had the audacity to show up at our house in December of 2019. That child is now a year old, and even though he is my blood by cousin, I will never accept him as one. It's not his fault, but because of him, my family is apart to this day. As for my older cousin of my uncle, well, let's just say she never spoke to her dad again. Matter of fact, she got a restraining order on him, but I don't blame her because I would do the same. Story time! Okay guys, so my grandma has sold tamales basically my entire life. And this one day when I was a little girl, my grandma ended up coming over to my house. It wasn't a good day for her. She was left with a few dozens and she told my family, she was like, I'm gonna go sell tamales around the neighborhood, I'll be back. And me being a little girl, obviously I wanted to go with my grandma. So my parents let me go. So when we left the house, it was around 7 or 7:30. We're going from door to door in the neighborhood. ¿Quieres comprar tamales? Do you want some tamales? And we were out there for maybe like around 45 minutes to an hour. So we did a whole circle around the neighborhood and my grandma was like, you know what, mija, let's just go home. I'm tired. So I told my grandma, I was like, okay, Willa, let's go. And it was already dark by then. Like, it was full out night. I don't remember exactly, but I think it was past 8:30. Like, it was already time to go home. So we get to the end of a block and we start crossing the street. But then all of a sudden, this car comes out of nowhere and it makes a really sharp turn right where me and my grandma are crossing. And I just hear my grandma say, corre, Stephanie, corre, corre, run. And my grandma's booking it, like she's already across the street. And I'm still running, like I was smaller, but I was running as fast as I could. All of a sudden, I see these headlights and they were about to hit me. But luckily, the car ended up braking in time. After that, I ended up making it across the street and my grandma was sitting on the floor and she was freaking out, like we almost got hit by a car. And then the guy gets out of his car, he's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And he specifically comes up to me because I was the one that he almost hit with the car. So after that, my grandma ends up calling my mom and my entire family is at our house. Okay, so my abuela ended up calling my mom. And I just hear my grandma saying, los pegaron con un carro. And I'm standing there and I realized that I can't walk. So I told my grandma, I was like, abuela, no puedo caminar. I can't walk. My foot hurts. And she tells my mom on the phone, like, Stephanie, no puede caminar. So then after that, the man is still really worried because he almost hit 2 people. And driving, we were about 5 minutes away from my house. Some of my family members literally ran as fast as they could. I just see them come running down the street. And then my mom and a few other family members end up pulling up in the car. And my uncle hops out of the car. He's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You almost hit my mom and my niece, blah, 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 blah. Some of my family had to tell him to calm down, like it was an accident. So then after that, my mom is checking out my foot. And they ended up calling the firemen. The firemen end up coming and they check out my foot. And after they checked it out, they told me I probably just sprained my ankle or I twisted it. I did something. And that's why it was hurting. And then the man comes up to me and I'm sitting down and he was like, I'm so sorry. And I could tell how bad he felt. And I was like, it's okay. I don't want you to get into trouble. You're fine. And I think the guy heard me tell him I want him to get in trouble because he looked at me. He was like, you want me to get in trouble? And I was like, yeah, because I thought we were talking about what I was talking about. Because TikTok hates me, so I'm just gonna do the rest here. So after that, the man ended up going home because he didn't kill anyone and he didn't hit anyone. And then I had a sprained ankle because I was trying to not get hit by the car. And then after that, when we all went home, I ended up snitching on my abuela because she left me. She didn't grab my hand like every other grandma would and be like, run, run, come on, let's go, mija. She was like, you're on your own. I remember looking up and she was already on the other side of the road. And I was still running and this car was about to hit me. I remember I announced it to the whole family, Abuela me dejó. And she was like, I did not. To this day, she still denies that she left me, but I still say that she does. And as for the man, I really hope he's good now because I still feel bad for him, pobrecito.